At my mom's birthday, my stepdad humiliated me in front of everyone and gave my dad's chair to his daughter's boyfriend. Later, I exposed that he forged my mom's signature, drained her savings, and built a plan that would have killed her. Hey, Reddit, this isn't one of those my stepdad's a jerk kind of stories. It's way deeper than that. Let's just say what started as a weird birthday dinner at my mom's house turned into something I never thought I'd deal with in real life. I didn't plan to get involved, but when I saw what was really going on, I couldn't stay quiet. Mom's 60th birthday dinner wasn't really about her. The second I walked in, I could tell it was Nathan's night, my mom's husband. The guy had that smug, hands-on-hips look people get when they think they've elevated something. He hired a private caterer, rented tableware that didn't belong to this house, and invited half his side of the family. Even the playlist was some bland jazz that screamed midlife crisis. Mom smiled when she saw me, the kind of smile people force when they're already tired. The house didn't look right either. The warm walls Dad and I painted years ago were now gray. Modern gray, Nathan called it. The wood furniture was replaced by sharp-edged, glass-topped stuff that looked like you couldn't touch it without leaving fingerprints. Every picture that used to hang in the hallway, family trips, Dad holding a fishing rod, me covered in paint when I was 8, gone. In their place, abstract art, all gray, black, and white. Randy, Nathan said, walking out of the dining room with a glass of sparkling water like it was champagne. Good of you to finally make it. Yeah, traffic, I said, taking my coat off. Didn't realize we needed reservations to come home. He gave that little chuckle he does when he's pretending something's funny, but wants you to know you're not. Just trying to make this night special for your mother. Looks special. He patted my shoulder like I was 12 and headed back to the dining room, where his daughter Veronica and her boyfriend Kyle were already sitting. Veronica was on her phone, scrolling like she'd rather be anywhere else. Kyle looked nervous, probably because Nathan treats him like he's auditioning for the family. The table was longer than I remembered. White tablecloth, folded napkins, candles, the kind of setup people post on social media with captions like family goals. I walked over to sit in Dad's old chair, the one at the head of the table. Before I could pull it out, Nathan stopped me with that fake smile plastered on his face. That seat belongs to someone who actually matters to this family, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's for my daughter's boyfriend. I looked at him. He looked back, expecting me to laugh or move. Instead, I pulled the chair out and sat down. Nobody tells me where to sit in this house, I said, keeping my voice even. The air froze. Veronica blinked up from her phone. Mom's hands trembled slightly, and Kyle looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Nathan's jaw tightened before he laughed. Too loud, too fake. Ha ha, well, that's one way to start dinner, he said, forcing cheer back into the room. I didn't smile. I unfolded the napkin and placed it in my lap like nothing happened. He sat down opposite me, still grinning, but with that edge in his eyes, the kind men get when they realize they just got checked in their own house. Dinner started, and Nathan made sure no one forgot whose show this was. He talked about his firm and clients, like he was the second coming of Warren Buffett. Halfway through, he raised a glass. To Elizabeth, he said, touching her hand. She's been through so much, and I'm proud to have given her stability again. I watched Mom force a small smile. The words sounded generous, but they were really about him, like everything else. When dinner was over, Mom started gathering plates even though the caterer was right there. I got up to help. In the kitchen, while stacking dishes, I noticed an envelope on the counter with a return address stamped Heritage Life Insurance Company. It was addressed to Nathan's office, but the name on the envelope was Elizabeth Carter, my mom. What's this? I asked casually, tapping it. Oh, nothing, Mom said too fast. Just something Nathan's handling. He takes care of all that stuff now. I nodded but didn't reply. She didn't meet my eyes. By the time dessert came out, I'd made up my mind about something. The guy was either unbelievably arrogant or hiding something. Probably both. When I left that night, Mom hugged me at the door. Nathan stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, smiling like he was posing for a brochure. Drive safe, son, he said. Always do, I answered. There was something off, something I couldn't name yet. The way Nathan talked like he owned the place. The way Mom avoided eye contact. The envelope. I pulled out of the driveway, glancing in the mirror at the house one more time. It didn't look like my childhood home anymore. It looked like a stage. And Nathan? He was the guy who thought he'd already written everyone's lines. What he didn't know yet was that I don't play along. And that chair I sat in? That wasn't just about pride. That was a warning. And if Nathan was smart, he'd take it. But I already knew he wouldn't. Guys like him never do. A week later, I started digging. Quietly, the same way I do when clients send me messy financials at work. It wasn't some wild plan. I just wanted to understand how a man who didn't exist 3 years ago now had my mom wrapped around his finger like a trust fund. Nathan came into our lives 6 months after Dad's funeral. I still remember the first time I saw him. He is the kind of guy who talks to everyone like he's doing them a favor. He showed up at Mom's friend's barbecue, helping her carry a cooler, calling her darlin' by the end of the day. Everyone said it was sweet that she was finally smiling again. He started with small stuff, fixing a leaky pipe, mowing the lawn, setting up her email on a better security system. Within a month, he was staying over 3 nights a week. Within 2, he was getting mail at the house. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd convinced her to let him handle the finances. His exact words were, "You shouldn't have to worry about boring stuff like bills." Mom ate it up. After 30 years of doing everything with Dad, I think she wanted someone to take care of her again. At first, I let it go. She seemed calmer. She talked about new beginnings. But the little things started adding up. The mailbox was always empty, but the counters were full of envelopes addressed to him. I didn't say anything until one afternoon she mentioned that Nathan had helped refinance the mortgage. That stopped me cold. The house had been paid off since I was in high school. Refinance what? I asked. She said it was just a tax thing. That's when I knew it was time to start pulling data. She hesitated for a second, then pushed a printout toward me. "I don't understand any of this," she said. "If you want to look, go ahead." With her permission, I logged into her account on her laptop and ran her name through the public property database. There it was. Not one, but 2 active mortgages under Elizabeth Carter, both within the last year. Same address, same lender, same cosigner. Nathan Anderson. Using the account access she'd given me, I checked her credit summary too. Her score had tanked. 780 down to 520 in less than 12 months. Multiple new credit cards, all sent to an office address that didn't match any local firm I could find. Everywhere I looked, Nathan's name was there. But when I searched for his supposed company, Anderson Strategic Investments, nothing came up. No registration, no tax filings, no website, not even a LinkedIn listing. Just a name that looked legit enough to bluff someone who didn't know better. I opened my work laptop and started a spreadsheet. Date, amount, account, source. I listed every change since the month he moved in. I wasn't angry yet, just collecting evidence like a scientist. That night, I called Mom and asked if she'd heard from her bank lately. She said everything was fine. "Nathan's helping me diversify," she said. "He's so good with numbers." Yeah, I bet he was. A few days later, I ran his name through archived court databases. No criminal records, but a pattern of short-term addresses. Always expensive rentals, always with different women listed as co-tenants. Then I saw something that made me scroll back. A name I didn't recognize. Daugh Anderson. I searched it. The headline popped up instantly. "Local woman dies in single car accident. Husband receives $800,000 life insurance payout." I stared at the screen. The article was from 11 years ago. The husband's name was Nathan Anderson. Same age, same middle initial, same face, just a few wrinkles younger. The details made my skin crawl. The crash happened late at night on a rural road. No witnesses. Insurance claim processed in record time. Authorities ruled it an accident. Husband not suspected of foul play. I sat there reading it over and over. The payout amount, the timeline, the quiet relocation 2 months later. All of it lined up with the way he'd slid into Mom's life. That night, I went to Mom's house. I asked her if she ever looked at the mail that came for her. She laughed and said she didn't need to. Nathan keeps everything organized. I asked if she'd ever met any of his old friends or family. She said he didn't talk much about the past because it was painful. Painful, I repeated. Like what? She shrugged. His wife passed away years ago. He doesn't like to talk about it. I wanted to push harder, but she was already shutting down. She didn't want me making her feel paranoid. She thought I was just being protective. So I nodded, changed the subject, and stayed another hour. Long enough to glance around and notice his laptop sitting open on the counter. A spreadsheet glowed on the screen before it locked itself. Columns of numbers, headings like assets, accounts, and returns. My kind of language. When I left that night, I didn't say anything, but I already knew my next move. At home, I started a second spreadsheet. This one labeled Pattern. 2 women, both middle-aged, both homeowners, both suddenly in financial trouble after meeting Nathan Anderson. One dead, one still very much alive. The last row I filled in had only one word. Next. That word sat there underlined, staring at me while the clock hit midnight. Nathan thought he was the smartest man in the room. but he'd never gone up against someone who actually reads the fine print. And I wasn't just reading it, I was writing it. The next Saturday, I drove over to Mom's place with a simple excuse. "I'll fix the Wi-Fi," I told her over the phone. "You said it keeps dropping." She sounded relieved. "Nathan's been meaning to look at that," she said. Perfect. When I got there, Nathan's SUV was in the driveway. He greeted me at the door like he always did. Too friendly, too rehearsed. "Tech guy's here," he joked, patting my shoulder. "You'll have to show me your secrets, Randy. Our router's possessed." "I'll take a look," I said, forcing a smile. I set my tool bag down near the dining table and followed the Ethernet cord that ran behind the cabinet. The router was fine, of course. What I really came for was sitting on the counter next to Nathan's leather planner, his laptop. He left it open like he didn't have a care in the world. I watched him walk out to the backyard to make a call. The second the door shut, I moved. From my bag, I pulled out a small flash drive, one I use at work for quick data backups. Plugged it in. My software started copying his active folders, documents, spreadsheets, and cached downloads. Basically everything on his desktop and local drive. It wasn't the full system, just the working files. The copy was finished. I pulled the drive, wiped fingerprints, and slid it into my wallet. When Nathan came back in, I was pretending to reboot the router. "Looks like it's fine now," I said. "Might have been the provider." He grinned. "You're a lifesaver." "See? We just needed a little professional help." Mom smiled, unaware of the real kind of help I was providing. When I left, I didn't drive home immediately. I parked 2 streets down, plugged my laptop in, and opened the copied files. There was a folder called Legacy Plan. That one caught my eye. Inside were dozens of spreadsheets, PDF scans, and notes. The folder tree split into 2 subfolders. Archive, Dana Anderson Estate Updates, Elizabeth. My stomach tightened, but I clicked anyway. The first folder, Dana Anderson, was filled with old documents. Mortgage contracts, loan agreements, insurance policies, all neatly labeled. There were scanned copies of her driver's license, her signature, even her vehicle registration. One file stood out, a PDF labeled Exit Window, Q1. It contained a checklist: refinance joint account, update insurance, finalize beneficiary, settle assets. The date? January. Dana's car crash happened in February. I opened the second folder, Estate Updates, Elizabeth. The layout was identical. Same categories, same document names. Only this time, the dates were recent. The exit window note had the same bullet points, just updated for this year. I scrolled to the bottom. The last line read, "Once transition is complete, liquidate joint assets." I sat there for a full minute, not moving. My mom's name was all over those files, on forged mortgage agreements, fake insurance applications, credit forms she never signed. Even the house deed was refiled under Anderson Family Trust. It wasn't random paperwork. It was a blueprint, the same system he'd used on his late wife, repeated line by line. Marry, drain, collect, replace. That's when it hit me. The pattern wasn't financial. It was fatal. Then I copied the entire Legacy Plan folder onto a second flash drive and encrypted it. Before leaving, I cleared my activity traces from Nathan's laptop. Recent file access logs, command history, anything that showed I'd been there. My copy stayed untouched, hashed and sealed for evidence. Nathan thought he was running a business plan. What he didn't realize was that I'd just read his playbook. I called a contact from a financial crimes task force, a guy I'd done contract work for years ago. I didn't give names, just asked hypotheticals about forged policies and asset transfers. He said, "If it's what it sounds like, it's organized financial exploitation. Big deal. If there's a death involved, it's potentially homicide for profit." That was all I needed to hear. I spent the next week documenting everything, keeping digital copies and printed backups in a locked box. I made 3 encrypted drives, one for me, one for my friend, and one hidden at my office under a different project name. Every night, I reviewed the pattern until I could recite it like clockwork. He'd already drained part of Mom's savings. He had her house tied up under his control through the Anderson Family Trust. The next transition step was insurance collection. The only thing missing was the event that triggered the payout, her death. The more I pieced it together, the clearer it became. He was preparing to do to my mom what he'd done before. When I visited Mom again the following weekend, she looked tired but tried to smile. Nathan was out meeting a client. I noticed a folder sitting on the counter, labeled beneficiary forms. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Oh, yes," she said softly. "Nathan's just helping update some paperwork." I nodded, pretending not to know. But inside, I was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Before I left, I made sure the chain was set for her, then checked the garage and her car's brakes, twice. I snapped a photo of the paperwork and left back home. I drew a line on my whiteboard under the word plan. Under it, I wrote exposure, Thanksgiving. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about prevention. He thought he could build another exit window. I'd turn it into a cell door. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. The family would be there. Mom, Veronica, even Nathan's brother. Perfect timing. This time, I wouldn't just warn him. I'd end it. Thanksgiving Day arrived like a business meeting I'd been prepping for weeks. I got to Mom's house an hour early, wearing a plain shirt and a calm face. No big talk, no dramatics. I'd already queued the email on my phone. Attachments, timestamps, forged documents, financial transfers, everything lined up clean. All I had to do was hit send. Mom was fluttering around the kitchen, smiling too much. She looked like someone holding her breath through the whole day. Veronica and her boyfriend Kyle showed up first, followed by Aunt Ruth and Nathan's brother Pete, a quiet guy who looked like he was constantly bracing for impact. Everyone sat around the table making small talk while Nathan played host like he was running a seminar. He carved the turkey with too much flair, complimented himself on the seasoning, and kept using words like legacy, growth, and our family brand. I barely touched my food. I just watched. Halfway through dinner, he turned his attention to me. "So, Randy," he said, swirling his wine glass. "How's work these days? Still analyzing spreadsheets? Still making numbers make sense," I said. He smiled like he'd won something. Good, good. I've always believed in people staying in their lanes. I didn't bite, just nodded. Mom shifted uncomfortably. "Nathan, please." He waved her off. "No, it's fine. It's just, I think it's time we all acknowledge some changes." Veronica looked up from her plate. "Dad." Nathan leaned back, grinning. "We're reassigning roles, so to speak. You're not exactly part of the core family anymore, Randy." Silence. Forks stopped. Even Kyle froze. Mom's face turned red. "Nathan." He kept talking, loving the sound of his own voice. Nothing personal, of course. It's just that family means shared values, shared interests. And frankly, you've always been more independent. I leaned back slowly. "That's one word for it." He smirked. "Exactly. So let's focus on people who actually contribute to this family's future." The room stayed dead quiet. You could have heard the clock ticking over the fridge. I stood up calmly, pushing my chair back. "I need some air." "Of course," he said, pretending to be magnanimous. "Don't take it personally." I didn't. I stepped out onto the porch, felt the cold air hit my face, and pulled my phone out. My thumb hovered over the button for maybe half a second, not because of nerves, just timing. Then I hit send. The subject line glowed on my screen. Evidence of financial and insurance fraud. Nathan Anderson. The email went to Mom, Veronica, Aunt Ruth, Pete, and the local authorities. The attachments were the entire legacy plan folder. Bank transfers, forged mortgage papers, fake insurance forms, and that one damning note. Exit window. Q1. I walked back inside and sat down. Same calm face, same empty plate. The first buzz came from Veronica's phone. She glanced at it, frowned, scrolled, then gasped loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dad, what is this?" Nathan's smile cracked. "What are you talking about?" Mom's phone buzzed next. She looked down, then up at him, her hand shaking slightly. "Nathan, what is this?" He reached for her phone, but she pulled it back. Pete's phone dinged, then Aunt Ruth's. The whole table lit up with notifications. Veronica started reading aloud. "Forged signatures, joint asset transfers, insurance forms, Mom's name's on these." Nathan stood up, his face turning red. "This is ridiculous. Fabrications. Someone's trying to—" I cut him off. "Your spreadsheets say otherwise. Especially the one labeled exit window, Q1. That's the same term you used when your first wife died. The same kind of paperwork, same dates, same payout timeline." He froze. I could see it in his eyes, that half second of recognition before denial kicked in. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snapped. "Those are private business documents?" "Right," I said, "because it's totally normal for a husband to file fake insurance policies on his wife and sign her name." Mom covered her mouth, shaking. "You forged my signature?" "Elizabeth, please," he said, voice cracking a little. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," she said quietly. Veronica stood up, tears in her eyes. "You did this to Mom too, didn't you?" "Sit down," he barked. "No," she said, backing away. "You killed her, didn't you?" Nathan slammed his fist on the table. "That's enough." The room erupted, Aunt Ruth yelling, Pete standing between them, Veronica crying, Mom frozen like a statue. I stayed seated, calm, just watching the show unravel. Nathan turned toward me, pointing. You think this is clever? You just ruined your mother's life. No, I said flatly. I just saved it. He stared at me, chest heaving. You think anyone's going to believe this? They already do, I said. The email went to the Financial Crimes Division, too. They're probably opening it right now. That was the breaking point. His face went pale. He looked around like a cornered animal. Mom stood up then, voice steady for the first time all night. Get out of my house. He didn't move at first. Then she repeated it, louder, clearer. Get out. He grabbed his coat off the chair, still muttering under his breath. You'll regret this, Elizabeth? You all will. Maybe, I said, standing too. But you're the one who'll need a lawyer. He slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Nobody spoke for a long time. Mom sat down slowly, staring at her hands. Veronica hugged her from behind, crying. Aunt Ruth whispered something to Pete, who was already dialing his phone. I stepped outside again, breathing out for the first time all night. The street was quiet. Cold wind. No sound but leaves scraping along the pavement. I checked my phone. The email showed as delivered. Red receipts already coming in from 2 addresses, one of them federal. Game over. I walked to my car, leaned against it, and looked back at the house. The lights inside flickered as Mom and Veronica moved through the kitchen, gathering the broken pieces of the evening. Nathan always said he built legacies. He just didn't realize he'd just built his last one. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with Mom. She was pale but steady, sitting on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders, staring at the turned-off TV. Aunt Ruth was in the kitchen, whispering on the phone with a lawyer she knew from her church group. Start with the banks, I said, pulling my laptop out of my bag. We need to freeze every account with your name on it. Mom blinked out of her daze. He has access to everything. Not for long. I logged into her online banking portal, changed passwords, and initiated security locks on all 3 accounts. Every time I hit update, I watched Nathan's access vanish. It was the digital version of changing the locks on the door. Ruth came back in. My lawyer friend's awake, she said. He said to file reports tonight. Fraud and financial exploitation. Perfect, I said. We'll need those case numbers when the investigators call. Veronica handed me her phone. You might want to see this, she said. It was Nathan's social profile, already inactive. He'd either deleted it or gone into hiding. He's not deleting his past that easy, I muttered. Later that night, I reorganized everything I'd sent at dinner. Same evidence, just cleaned up and properly labeled. By midnight, I forwarded the full secured folders to the Financial Crimes Unit and the county police. It wasn't new information, just the official version ready for investigators to process. They contained everything: the legacy plan folder, the property transfers, the life insurance forgeries, and a detailed timeline connecting it all to Dana Anderson's accident. At 1:17 a.m., I got an automated reply from the Financial Crimes Division. Case received, pending review. Now we wait, I said. But we didn't have to wait long. By morning, 2 detectives were at the house. They were calm but serious, the kind of people who've seen every kind of scam, but still looked surprised at how neat this one was. One of them, a woman named Patel, flipped through the printouts I'd organized. This is the cleanest evidence chain I've seen in years, she said. You really did your homework. Data's my job, I said. He's been planning this for a while. She nodded. We can tell. Every document cross-matches the same pattern. Same dates, same transfer trails, even the same terminology. Exit window. We'll get warrants today. Mom sat quietly. So it's real, she said. It wasn't just me overreacting. Patel looked at her gently. It's very real, ma'am. And it's not your fault. Veronica stood by the window, crying softly. He made me witness some of the insurance forms, she said suddenly. He said it was just for paperwork. I didn't even read them. Patel wrote it down. That helps us. It shows intent. The other detective, Morales, was already making calls. We're submitting emergency freeze requests to the banks, he said. Once the court order's signed, his accounts will be locked. He wasn't kidding. Around noon, Patel's phone buzzed. She turned the screen toward me. A bank alert. Nathan had just tried to wire nearly $200,000 to an offshore account in Belize. The system flagged it immediately. Within minutes, the funds were frozen, and a warrant for his arrest was issued. Within a few days, investigators had enough to move. Nathan was arrested later that week at a rest stop off the interstate, calm as ever, like a man who still thought he'd talk his way out. I spent that morning on the phone with Patel, forwarding backup files and verifying data chains for court. She said they'd reopen Dana Anderson's case. Your files included vehicle maintenance records, she said. We had an analyst look at them. The brake line reports were forged. That one sentence hung in the air. He hadn't just drained his first wife, he'd killed her. Mom heard me on the phone and just sat there, motionless. When I hung up, she said quietly, "He told me she fell asleep at the wheel." "Yeah," I said. "That's what the report said too." She nodded once, no tears, just pure disbelief settling into her bones. He would have done it to me. "Yeah," I said again. The police took formal statements that afternoon. Veronica gave hers first. She told them about the night he'd made her sign as a witness on insurance updates, about how he'd said, "You'll thank me one day for learning how real wealth works." Patel said that alone could prove premeditation. The next day, Patel called again. "He's being transferred to a federal holding facility," she said. "The U.S. Attorney's Office is taking over. They're linking him to similar frauds in 3 other states." "Good," I said. "He can explain his exit window to them." 2 days later, the U.S. Attorney's Office sent an official acknowledgement. My files were now part of the federal case. They requested full forensic support. It felt strange, after weeks of suspicion and quiet work, to finally have backup, to know the law was catching up. By the weekend, federal prosecutors officially charged Nathan Anderson with wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation across state lines. His bail was denied. The words "flight risk" were printed right there in the judge's order. It was over. But for Mom, it was the first day of starting over. It didn't happen overnight. After months of discovery, motions, and forensics, the schedule finally landed. About 8 months later, the trial date was set. Nathan's case was prioritized because of the financial scale, multi-state fraud, elder exploitation, and potential homicide connections. When the subpoena came, I wasn't surprised. I'd been waiting to tell the story in a room where it actually mattered. The courthouse was packed the first day. Reporters, legal observers, people who'd probably lost money to someone like him. Nathan walked in wearing a dark suit, clean-shaven, calm. Same fake confidence. He looked around the room like he was still running the meeting. Mom sat 2 rows behind the prosecution table with Veronica and Aunt Ruth. She didn't cry. Didn't even blink when he turned and tried to catch her eye. She just looked through him, like he was a bad dream she'd finally woken up from. When they called me to testify, I walked up steady. No notes. The prosecutor nodded, signaling that this was my show. "Mr. Carter," she said, "can you explain how you obtained these documents?" "From his laptop," I said plainly. "He left it open." I made a read-only backup of his active files and turned them over to investigators. They later cloned the full drive under a warrant and confirmed the originals matched my copy exactly. She projected the screen for the jury, the legacy plan folder. Inside, file names filled the display. Archive, Dana Anderson, estate updates, Elizabeth, exit window, Q1. "Walk us through this," she said. I did, step by step. Transfer logs, forged signatures, matching dates, false refinance documents, the pattern repeating exactly. The prosecutor didn't interrupt. The jury followed every word. When I finished, she asked one last question. "In your professional opinion, was this a coincidence?" "No," I said. "It was a system. He built a routine for killing people financially, and when that stopped working, he moved on to physically eliminating them. You could feel the air shift." Even the judge looked up from his notes. Nathan's attorney tried to shake me on cross-examination, claiming the documents could have been planted. I handed over the forensic hash codes proving authenticity. He switched to accusing me of bias since I was family. I let him talk himself into circles. When I stepped down, the prosecutor whispered, "You just buried him." Day 3 brought the forensic experts. They confirmed every signature was fake, identical strokes traced digitally. The FBI cyber unit verified that each exit window file had been copied from one hard drive to another after Dana's death. It wasn't just similar, it was cloned. On day 5, the prosecution presented the financial trail: insurance claims, property transfers, shell companies, and the offshore account he'd tried to move money into. The evidence lined up so perfectly, it almost felt staged. Nathan stopped taking notes halfway through and just stared ahead, jaw tight. The defense tried one last angle: mental instability, claiming he suffered from compulsive financial behavior. The psychologist they brought in folded within 10 minutes under cross. The prosecutor showed that Nathan had changed his identity 3 times, each time after a payout. When they played his recorded phone calls from jail, the case was sealed. He'd told one of his old partners, "I just made a few bad calculations." That line hit the news that night. By the end of the week, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, identity theft, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. When the verdict was read, Nathan didn't flinch. He just leaned back in his chair, the same smirk he wore at Thanksgiving gone, but the arrogance still faintly there. The federal judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. He spoke briefly before being escorted out. "You think you stopped me," he said, voice low but cold. "You just destroyed your own family." Mom stood up from the bench and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You were never part of this family." That shut him up. As they let him out, he turned his head once toward Veronica. She didn't look up. She just whispered something under her breath. Later, she told me it was goodbye for good. The FBI launched new probes within days. They reopened 2 other accidents involving women who'd briefly dated Nathan under aliases. One in Arizona, one in Illinois. Both had the same forged forms, same policies, same quarter timing. It wasn't just fraud anymore. It was serial predation disguised as business. Mom finalized the divorce right after sentencing. The judge approved it immediately since Nathan was in custody. Veronica cut all contact. She sold her car, moved out of state, and sent Mom one last message. "I'm sorry for what he did. I'll never forgive him, but I'm done letting him own any part of my life." Mom printed that text and pinned it to the fridge. When it was finally quiet again, I sat outside on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun hit the old fence Dad built. The house looked different now. Some rooms empty, some walls still patched from where we'd taken things down, but it finally felt like home again. For the first time in years, the weight was gone. No more guessing, no more pretending, just silence. Real silence. The kind you earn after ending something that should have ended long ago. 2 years later, Thanksgiving looked nothing like it used to. No catering trucks, no decorations that screamed status, no forced smiles. Just the smell of real food and the sound of people who actually wanted to be there. Mom looked peaceful. She'd started dating again. A retired teacher named Robert. He was kind, soft-spoken, the type who helped wash dishes without being asked. He joined us that night, brought flowers for Mom, and shook my hand like a man who understood what respect meant. He didn't try too hard. He didn't need to. I wasn't alone either. Sarah came with me, a middle school teacher I met by accident at a hardware store. She laughed at my dry humor, understood when I went quiet, and never pushed when I needed space. She had this calmness about her that made everything feel easy again. She fit in instantly, like she'd always been part of it. Dinner was quiet in the best way. No one raised their voice, no one tried to control the table, just laughter, light conversation, and the kind of comfort that comes from survival. Before we ate, Mom stood and smiled at everyone. "Before we start," she said, "there's one tradition I want to keep." She nodded toward the end of the table. Dad's old chair sat empty. No place card, no new owner, just space. "That's for the people who protected us," she said. "For the ones who aren't here, and the ones who stayed when it mattered." It wasn't sad, it was proud. Everyone raised their glasses, water, cider, nothing fancy, and the room went quiet for a few seconds. Then Mom smiled again and said, "Now eat before it gets cold." After dinner, Sarah helped clean up while Robert and Ruth argued about pie crusts in the kitchen. I went to the living room and sat near the window, my laptop open. The folder was still there, legacy_plan_archive. I hadn't looked at it since the trial. It felt strange opening it again. Every document, every image, every note that had once been a weapon. I scrolled through one last time, just to be sure I remembered what it cost us to get here. Then I selected everything, hovered over delete, and hit confirm. The screen went blank. No folder, no evidence, no more traces of the man who thought he could turn other people's lives into financial plans. Sarah walked in quietly and leaned against the doorframe. "What was that?" "Just old files," I said. "Time to clean house." She smiled. "Good." Mom looked around the table, her eyes stopping on me for a second. "You look lighter," she said. "Maybe I am," I told her. She reached over, squeezed my hand once, then let go. "You earned it." Later, when everyone was gone, I helped Mom pack leftovers into containers. She kept one for Veronica, who couldn't make it but had sent a message earlier. Short, but genuine. "Tell Mom I'm thankful for her." When I got home, I sat in my car for a moment, thinking about how different everything felt. 2 years ago, Nathan had planned my mother's ending down to the quarter. I rewrote his instead. And now, for the first time, it finally felt like family again. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.